So what's up, everybody? I don't know who's going to be tuning in, but a good friend of mine died yesterday. I got the word. I got a text message that my old good friend, dear friend, Phil Albert, back in Baltimore, Maryland. I think he might have moved to Pennsylvania, maybe, but that he had passed away. And it just got me thinking about life and death and the mentors, the people who come into our life, who invest in us, who believe in us. And I wanted to do a video honoring and commemorating Phil Albert, tell you a little bit about him. You may think, well, what's that got to do with me? I think you're going to see yourself somewhere in the things I'm going to talk about. I think like the mind jitsu, it's going to have relevance to you, to your life. It's going to resonate. And I want to talk also about my friend. I just want to tell the stories, like eulogizing Phil Albert, Rachel DePasquale, my cousin growing up back in Baltimore, Maryland. Just, you know, you can think about the people that have touched you, that made you laugh, that just etched these vivid memories in your life, that a piece of them is forever a part of you. That's what this video is going to be about. I'm going to tell you about some of the things, because Phil Albert was one of those motivational speakers and leaders at a time when they weren't a dime a dozen. They weren't on every Facebook channel, every Facebook ad, every Instagram ad. Like this guy, he wasn't motivating you to say, hey, write a check to me, buy my product. It wasn't that. It was just from his heart, such a spiritual, good man. And he was a Division I football coach back in Towson, Maryland, Towson University, coached a lot, coached NFL players, coached so many fine, outstanding young men that went on to become, you know, great leaders in their community and very successful. And he was just all about like the winning ingredients of life. How do you build, how do you design a great life? At a time when everybody wasn't putting their life under a microscope, when everybody wasn't, you know, thinking about these inspiring quotes. He was that person. He always had the right quote at the right time for the right situation. Whatever your situation was, Phil Albert had a quote there waiting for you. And a lot of times it was from the Bible, because I used to go to church with him and his family, and he was a giant of a man, a giant of a human being. He really was. Like I'm sure right now back in Maryland that there's an outpouring, thousands of people, probably maybe even tens of thousands of people whose lives are impacted by Phil Albert, including the head football coach there at the University of Maryland, my alma mater. Everybody knows Phil Albert. If you're in the football scene there in Maryland, whether at the high school level, Calvert Hall, where he did some coaching, or Towson or University of Maryland, the chances are good. You know who Phil Albert is, and he just always had that enthusiasm. And I remember the reason I met Phil Albert is I dated very briefly his daughter, Becky, back in high school. And I remember when I first met the Albert family that I met Becky's brother, Christian. And Christian, my first impressions, this is something that should resonate with a lot of you, because we always say the first impression is the lasting impression. And if you don't hit it off with somebody day one, hour one, you're not going to be friends with them, and they're going to forever have a bad. Christian Albert and I, for weeks, man, we were oil and water. Like, we could not, like, I thought he was too cocky and full of himself. He thought I was too cocky and full of himself. And I didn't want to just talk to him very much. It was like, he just didn't want to deal with him. Christian Albert, within a few months, became one of my closest friends. To this day, no matter how much time goes by, if I don't talk with Christian, if I don't communicate with him, it's like he's one of those friends, when you pick the phone up, it's like you never miss a beat. It's like, damn, like it's like, just like yesterday, it's going back to high school. There's never a lull or a lag in the conversation when you talk to like a friend like Christian. It's just like, you're just in harmony, you're in sync with them. And so it's amazing, because I didn't really care for Christian much when I first met him. He didn't care for me. And once we got rid of that shield, that armor, right, that tough guy armor, once we got past that, and we really realized, man, we're both philosophers. We're both want to put, we're both really concerned about the meaning of life, even as 15-year-olds, when a lot of people weren't. We would sit around, we would go to Phil and Kay Albert's house on a Friday night, Saturday night, 2 a.m., and we would just make pancakes and waffles and eggs and raid the refrigerator and just solve all the world's problems and talk about philosophy and talk about girls. Those are some of my fondest high school memories. And so thanks, I'm so grateful to Mr. and Mrs. Albert to produce like a Christian Albert, who is just such an outstanding young man, and he's outstanding to this day. And I just, some of my fondest memories in high school, that's really where I started making pancakes. I started making pancakes back in high school, and waffles, because they were such a big deal, such a centerpiece at the Albert family. And I remember when I was younger, so I was one of those kids who would come over to your house, and rather than talk to the other teenagers who were 14, who were 15, who were 16, who were 17, I wanted to talk to the adults. I wanted to talk to the parents. I wanted to talk to the grandparents. I wanted to sit there and pick their brains, because they were usually thinking about thinking and philosophy. And I was always, coming from Baltimore, I was always amazed. This is going to sound crazy. I was always amazed when I went to a friend's house and his mom and his dad were married and they were still together. Because I didn't see a lot of that in Baltimore, in the neighborhoods where I grew up. I actually didn't. I remember when I was younger, and like when I started dating, I think I had my first date when I was 13 years old. And I remember after meeting her, I thought, well, if this goes well, I can't wait to meet her mom. I can't wait to meet her mom. And it didn't even occur to me that she could live with her dad and they'd be married. It didn't even occur to me, right? That's how messed up things are in Baltimore, where you just had all these single family moms and the dads were nowhere to be found. And it really wasn't like a lot of the parents were just so stressed out of their mind and trying to work and make ends meet, and the kids just kind of ran wild, and it was a free-for-all. But Phil and Kay Albert, so it was like they've been married such a long time, and I would just be like, well, what's the secret? How do you do this? Like, how do you all stay married? And what are your philosophies about marriage, about love, about life? And so Phil Albert, when I was there, he was an early mentor for a young man that didn't have a lot of male mentors. For the early years of my life, I really only just had a few here and there. Thomas Boone was one, Curzon Brown was another, my Uncle Frank was another, and Phil Albert, and of course Gary Horn, Joe Hughes Sr. But they were more intermittent. They had their lives, they were busy, but whenever I saw them, they were great to me. They were outstanding to me. They saw something special in me. They thought I was entertaining and thought I was a good kid, even though I was kind of from the rough side of the tracks, and I was raw, and I was candid, and I was blunt, and I had no filter, and sometimes I'd say things or ask things that were like, But I was a very curious kid, and someone like Phil Albert would indulge my curiosities. I remember one thing he told me, which is a great piece of advice, a couple of things that he told me that always stayed with me, because he always had a quote. And one thing I asked Phil Albert one time is, what's the the rules of your marriage? What makes this marriage last? Like, what are the rules in this house regarding the marriage? And he said one of the most important things for his marriage, and he thought for any marriage, was there was a passage in the Bible, don't let the sun go down on your anger. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. When you no matter what happens, no matter what disagreements there were during the day, when you lay your head to pillow, before you go to bed, you have love in your heart, forgiveness. We are a family. We are a unit. We're not going anywhere. We'll make it through anything. That was one of the biggest philosophies to him, to making his marriage work. And that's a great piece of advice, no matter who you are, and just taught in terms of just forgiveness, because a lot of us, we don't even forgive ourselves. Our biggest problem is we don't forgive ourselves. And then we don't forgive others, and we hold on to grudges. And then when you do that, when you're always mad, or you're always angry, you're always resentful, or you're jealous because somebody did something wrong or somebody said something, then guess who's going to drink that poison? Guess who's going to drink the poison of being angry, of being resentful, of not forgiving? We're going to drink that poison, right? We're serving up poison to ourselves. He said, don't let the sun go down your anger. Always remembered that. And I think I'm just naturally wired. That's been a blessing from God. I was born with that. I've always been a very forgiving person, thank goodness. That comes very easy to me. But hearing Phil Albert say that to me when I was 15, 16 years old, it cemented it, it reinforced it, it crystallized it, because I didn't realize at the time that I was very forgiving. And I had a quick temper and things like that, but I would be forgiving. But when he said that, I just emphasized it, and it just reinforced it to me. So that was one great piece of advice from Phil Albert. Another was better to be prepared and never get the opportunity than to get the opportunity and not be prepared. That was a Phil Albert-ism. And I'm sure he got it from somewhere else, but he shared it with me. And better to be prepared and never get the opportunity than to get the opportunity and not be prepared. Meaning, hey, because a lot of people, we make excuses and, well, I'm not, if I get the opportunity, then I'll start preparing for that. It's like, no, you start preparing for it now. Maybe you will get the opportunity, maybe you won't. But be prepared. And that's another thing where it's passion over profits. That's sort of the lesson in that too, is passion over profits. Even if you never make it big, even if the world never recognizes your magnificence, you still follow your passion. And a lot of times the passion is the reward. It's nice to get the profit as a reward as well. Hopefully, ideally, we get both, the best of both worlds. We get passion and all the rewards and all the adventures and all the lessons of following our passion, and also the profits. But passion a lot of times is its own reward. Passion can be its own reward. So Phil Albert, taught that to me. I just, my heart sank a little bit when I saw that. And, it's just a reminder that we are all getting old, and it's a reminder of life and death and death in this dimension. And just a reminder of, like, how much we do touch each other's lives. No man, no woman is an island unto themselves. We need each other. We need each other for support, to teach us, to show us, to pick us up sometimes when we just aren't feeling good, whatever. And Phil Albert was just, he was one of those people that made the room better, man. He made the room better. He filled it with he was always on. He always had that on button. He was always excited. He was always optimistic. He was full of faith. I look around now, I see so much fear, and this gentleman was just full of faith, and it was contagious. And I want to also talk about my cousin, my late great cousin, Rachel DiPasquale. You gotta love those vowels, DiPasquale. All right, that's a real Italian name. And she would have been 51 years old yesterday. And my Aunt Lorraine sent her a very, wrote on Facebook a very pretty and touching commemoration of Rachel. And Rachel was one of a kind as a cousin, as a human. She was, before Ronda Rousey, before Holly Holm, before Amanda Nunes, before Valentina Shevchenko, and all the great, Clarissa Shields in boxing, and Layla Ali, and before all these amazing women fighters now, and Misha Tate. Before that, you had, going back to Baltimore, to the hood, you had Rachel DiPasquale. I'm telling you what, Rachel DiPasquale could beat up most men or boys her age, hands down. I used to wrestle with her. She was strong. She was thick, she was a curvy woman. She had a lot of muscle, a lot of quick twitch muscle fiber. My goodness, she was, at that time and for many years after, so when I was a teenager and for many years after, I had never seen or experienced a woman that strong. And fortunately, Rachel was a gentle giant. She was so, she was funny, she was playful, she could be goofy. She was always the life of the party. But man, she was tough, and she liked to wrestle too. She liked wrestling as much as I did. And you'd wrestle with Rachel, and man, it was hard to do anything with her. I was undersized, right? She was a lot bigger than I was, but wow, she was an older cousin. But she just had that joie de vivre, that life force running in her. And she died way before her time. She died in her 20s and succumbed to cancer. Has a wonderful son who's playing college football. She was so amazing. She really was. And so memorable, right? You just have those family and those friends who are just so like larger than life. She was herself. I mean, that's all you can be. Like she was just, Rachel was herself. She was doing Rachel. There was no script. She wasn't trying to be something else. She wasn't part of the echo chamber of what's everyone else doing. Just a true, colorful character. And I miss her. I miss that she's not around right now in this dimension. But like I told my aunt, and I believe this, you don't have to believe this. You can believe what you want. I believe we are eternal energy. We are spirit energy. We are renting these bodies. We are neither born and we never die. We've been since the beginning of time for all time eternity. Where we were before, I don't, I'm not positive, and where we go after, I'm not positive. I have my ideas. I won't share them here. It's no need, but I believe that, like Rachel and Mr. Albert, I believe that they're among us. I believe I'll be among you in some form when my time goes. But there is, just like eternal optimism, I believe we're eternal spirit energy. There's an expiration date for us in this dimension. Maybe we live dimensions within dimensions, right? So maybe I live, you live in a bunch of different dimensions in this dimension, in this particular life, what we call life. But there's an expiration date on this, and that death in this dimension is what gives value to life. And so I have no problem to contemplate. I remember when I was a philosophy student at the University of Maryland, I contemplated death a lot. We talked about death and talked about life, and it wasn't super uncomfortable for me to talk about because I realized how important it is. It's like begin with the end in mind. Like go forward and think, what would I want people to say about me in the end when I'm dead one day? What would I want them to say if people gathered around, if people were to eulogize me, or like what I'm doing now with Phil Albert and Rachel DiPasquale and others, like how would you want to be remembered? And are you doing that now? And if you're not, what are you scared of? What are you waiting for? You're waiting for the right time. It's the right time. Right now is the right time. And just, I was talking to a friend who's a pilot. He's flown all over the world, Africa. He's flown all over America. He's just lived his life in a plane. And sometimes some of those days are like 12-hour days, 15-hour days in a plane, just piloting. And he said, Frank, when you fly as much as I have flown, you realize just how few people there actually are in the world. He flies in a lot of places. It's like he's lucky if he sees a single person, or maybe he'll see 10 people the whole time he's flying. And most of the time that he's flying, he's either flying over like a farm field, right, agriculture, just fields and fields and fields of agriculture and corn and different crops, or he's flying over ocean. He's flying over bodies of water, which is most of the earth. And he said, you get up there, you just feel really small. You feel really small. It reminds you of how small we really are. And it reminds me of that Sting song. On and on the rain will fall, like tears from a star, like tears from the star. On and on the rain will sing, how fragile we are, how fragile we are, how fragile we are. How small, like we're like a speck of the smallest sand, in this moment in time. And I said, well, what do you mean? Let's take that further, because I feel like you want to say something else. You feel small up there. What perspective does that give you on this life? He said, it just reminds you, don't sweat the small stuff. There's so much confusion in our world, and there's always a billboard, there's always an advertisement, there's always something competing for your attention. There's all this stuff on the cell phone, and there's all these advertisements, and all these phone calls and text messages and dating apps and video games and just all of this overstimulation. And you just realize like how simple life and things can be, and not to sweat the small stuff. So he didn't mean it like we're just small, we're insignificant. He meant it like we are significant, but we need to simplify things. Life is pretty simple. We unnecessarily complicate it. I was thinking, I was writing last night something like, spirit illuminates and fear, logic complicates. So spirit illuminates, or intuition illuminates, logic complicates, or fear complicates. Meaning there's so much clutter. That's what I took from my pilot friends. Like there's so much clutter in the world, in our thinking, and when he gets up in that plane and he just sees just ocean and clouds and fields. What's up, Zion? And you just see that and you realize like, wow, life can be simple. We just need to declutter. We just need to appreciate the simple. And sometimes, ironically, when you feel small, you can feel significant because you realize how infinite and how vast this world is and how amazing it is. Well, why do we complicate it so much? And why do we worry about things that aren't essential, that aren't important? Why do we get so monkey-minded where we're so stressed, we're so afraid? And time is ticking away. And this life is precious. And then you got people like Phil Albert, Rachel DiPasquale, both of them, man, they took life by the horns. It was like every second, every minute mattered. They were unique characters, they were colorful characters, they were always eternally optimistic, they were always on and always picking other people up. And what's up, Johnny Freeman, my man, my boy right there. So yeah, just, by looking at death, death, thinking about when I'm dead, what do I want him to say? And looking at death, and death can give life a lot of meaning. The fact that there's an expiration date gives these days a lot of gravity, a lot of importance. And I'm going to die, you're going to die in this dimension at least. We're here for a limited time. We don't know when our card is pulled. We don't know when the time is up. I'm the healthiest guy, and a lot of people know. I'm literally, that people have told me that, Frank, you're the healthiest guy I know, right? But that doesn't guarantee me nothing. I could be gone too. We're all, by grace of God, we'll all be grateful that we wake up and that we have another day and that everything still works. The voice works, the eyes work, the ears work, hands are working, muscles are working, doing pull-ups, dips, whatever. Glory to God. Like, it's amazing when things work, and just to be grateful for the little things. So, I guess the point of this is to, not be scared of death. I think when I get older, as I'm getting older, and I feel more freedom, Johnny Freeman just comes in there and he made me think of that word, freedom. The word Frank, my name, we had 4 Franks in my family growing up, 4, granddad, uncle, me, and a nephew. And in fact, my cousin Frank, the youngest of the 4 Franks, is the one who texted me yesterday, and he played Division I football in the past and played for Calvert Hall in Maryland, which is a very good football program. And he said, I just wanted to let you know, I know you were very close to the Albert family, Mr. Phil Albert. He died yesterday, and I'm sorry about that. And the word Frank, if you go back to the Germanic, right, just, I'm sure it maybe means something if you go back thousands of years, maybe different, but it means candid, it means honest, but it also means in the German tribes that you were using that name, Frank, are F-R-A-N-C. It's a free people. So the word Frank really means, like to your word, Johnny Freeman, means free. That's part of what the word means. It means free. And it kind of means rock too, because the word Frank vibrationally, mathematically is like rock. So that's part of my name, is free, candid, rock, a strong foundation. And so I think a lot in these new chapters of my life, I think a lot about freedom. And freedom to me is freedom from fear. And that's what we all have to wrestle with. You only get to choose. You You either choose faith or fear. You can't be both at the same time. You're either choosing love or you're going to choose something that's not love. You can't be both at the same time. What's going to dominate you? Is it going to be faith? Is it going to be confidence? Is it going to be the glass is half full? Is it going to be seeing the best in other people, or is it going to be the opposite? We have to choose. And I just choose now to make the best of my days. I choose to feel more and more free. And part of feeling free to me is to make peace that death, I hope death is 50, 60, 70 years. I hope it is. But whenever that comes, whenever it's like I feel more and more a sense of freedom, a sense of peace that, it's not always the years, it's the quality of the years. Some people are going to live a long time, but they're not really living, and they're full of fear, and they're full of whatever, and they're not living their true best self. They're not true to themselves. They're not living their passion. So freedom's a very important thing. There's a lot of fear going around now. That's the ultimate virus. That's the real virus right now, is fear. Fear is terrible for us as a people. It's terrible for our bodies. It's terrible for our immune system. It's terrible for our health. It's terrible for our relationships. No one is fearless. We all have some fear, but we can be courageous, right? It's a little difference. Courage doesn't mean you have no fear. Say someone's fearless. Well, very few people are fearless. You have to be full, but courageous. Being courageous enough to be your true self, to be unique, to be who you were meant to be, not this little cookie cutter thing that, these little limitations, this little box that a lot of society wants to put us in, and have this little cookie cutter life and then die. No, it's about being free and being who you were meant to be, and standing up. I think that was another Phil Albert thing. It was, and again, a lot of these quotes, just quotes that he had borrowed. He'd seen them somewhere, but he'd say, stand for something, or you'll fall for, you'll fall for anything. Stand for something, or you'll fall for anything. That was, simple, but just his thing was take a stand. Stand for something, and you're not going to please everybody. That was Phil Albert, great teacher, a phenomenal giant of a man, a giant of a teacher. I hope one day I can have the impact on as many people as Phil Albert did. So anybody who's watched this to the end, whether it be a Carreri, my Aunt Lorraine, anybody who knew Phil Albert, the Albert family, I just want to say to the Albert family, to my Aunt Lorraine, to anybody who's lost someone you love, just remember them, honor them. A piece of them is always a part of us. And if you're like me, you believe that we're eternal, and that those spirits, man, we live on. Energy can be neither created nor destroyed. It can't. It just transfers. It just transitions somewhere else. We're just renting these bodies, and we are energy. We are invisible energy. That's most of who we are. We are vibrational energy. We are frequencies. And that's who we are, and that's what I believe. And death is always there, and no one's going to be spared of it in this dimension. We're all going to go there. What are we going to do in the meantime? How are we going to spend these precious days? How are we going to spend it? Being scared, being afraid, living in fear? No. Let's not do that, man. That's, that ain't living, man. That is not living. So I hope everybody is doing well. I got plenty to do, but I wanted to make this. I just felt it in my heart, because I'm going to miss, I already miss Mr. Phil. I've missed him for years, and I miss Rachel. And I know that a lot of us, it just seems like 2020, a lot of people we love, a decent number of them came and went. They're not here with us anymore. So those of us that are here, that are friends, that are acquaintances, whatever, thank you for being in my life, whatever your role, whatever it is you taught me, or the love you showed me, or the goodwill, or the cheer, or the what's up, Frank, or whatever, little respect, the divine in me, as the yogis say, the namaste, the divine in me sees the divine in you. The divine light in me recognizes the divine light in you. And that's real, I really do. I see it more and more in everybody, man. Let's just be good to each other. Let's forgive each other. Let's let's give each other the benefit of the doubt. Let's realize we all have a past. You know, it's like that old saying, every saint has a past, and every sinner has a future. You know, every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. We all have something. You know, let's just forgive each other. Let's not sit here and gossip and be tearing each other down, man. We need each other now more than ever. You know, 2020 is illuminating that, man. We need to be nicer to each other, and you know, instead of kicking everybody in the ass and kicking them in the teeth, we need to keep picking each other up. You know, a lot more of that. So I'm grateful for people like Phil Albert that just saw something in me. Now, a lot of people didn't when I was a teenager. A lot of people didn't see anything special in me. That guy saw something in me. He saw something in me, man. He saw like a light. He saw a goodness. So very grateful. I hope wherever you're doing now that you're eating healthy. Every bite matters. I hope that your head is in the right place. You got some good habits, and never going to be a better time than right here, right now to start living right and honoring yourself and loving yourself, forgiving yourself, and making good decisions. You're always one committed decision away. One committed decision away. Have a great afternoon, everybody.